Honor is a sub-brand of Huawei, and Huawei is the #2 smartphone manufacturer in the world and has a commanding lead over similarly marketed Chinese OEM Xiaomi. So 2018 was a pretty good year from them. Part of their successes come from the vast diversity of devices they offer, from the sub-$200 devices up through the $1,500 plus devices like the Porsche design ones. Today though, we're looking at the Honor View 20, the Honor flagship, for this 3-month period at least, aimed squarely at dethroning the OnePlus 6T. So with that, I bring you everything Honor got wrong with the V20. I'm going to start this video off like I did the OnePlus video, with an aim to be objective, but I think this one might be a little bit more subjective than the last one was. This is also super nitpicky, and it's likely going to dive into things you might not agree with or feel is dumb or way overblown. And that's what it's supposed to be. These are the things I feel Honor got wrong. So before I dive into the toxic stew that is EMUI...
Magic UI.
Oh, it's called Magic UI 2.0 now?
Yep.
It looks like EMUI. It feels like EMUI. It has the same bugs as EMUI. It's not.
Nope.
Oh, so it's the same thing, they're just calling it something different. Well, if it acts like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, if it looks like a duck... Alright, well, let's just get this out of the way. We're first going to go into the hardware before we get to the software. The display. Now, Honor did a lot of good things with this display. It's 1080p, and that's fine at this price point. It gets relatively bright. Now, what they didn't do right, though, is the technology. Honor decided to go with an LCD panel instead of an OLED, and on the surface, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, compared to the OnePlus 6, you get a higher effective resolution thanks to RGB stripe. The issue is that when you have this really small chin and this cutout on the top of the display, you get shadows and blooming. I can't help but see it every single time I use the phone and I'm on a white screen, like the settings screen. Along the bottom and the top, there's an almost purplish shadow that runs along the device. You can also see LCD blooming on the bottom due to the backlight and the constrained space you have with the chin. This is something that drove me nuts with the LG G7. Some will notice it, some won't. I do, and it drives me crazy. It's the same thing with the cutout. There's almost a dingy gray shadow around it. It's unappealing, and once you see it, you really can't unsee it. Continuing on the subject of the display, let's talk about whatever coating Honor and Huawei use on top of it. Now, when it comes to the oleophobic coating, it's fine. It resists smudges and all that kind of fun stuff. But when it comes to scratches, it's horrible. 2 XDA contributors have the Mate 20 Pros, and they both complain about the exact same thing. Their screens scratch easier than any other device they've ever used, and my View 20 is doing the exact same thing. Now, turning to the back of the phone, we have the back finish. Okay, well, the back finish is actually really cool and quite mesmerizing, especially in blue and red. But what isn't cool is the time of flight or the 3D sensor nestled here. It's neat, it has some show floor tricks, but they're just that, and you'll rarely, if ever, use them. Time of flight sensors do have a place on the modern smartphone, but that's mainly on the front for facial identification. Honor would have been much better off just using the wide-angle sensor that was much praised on the Mate 20 Pro. That said, the camera performance is outstanding on the View 20, and if you haven't yet seen my video on it, I definitely encourage you to do so, so I really can't knock it too hard. Finally, before we move to the software, I have my petty award, and that goes to the Headphone Jack. Yes, this phone has one, but it's on the top. All headphone jacks should be on the bottom. It aids in pocketability, and it functions better when it's sitting on my desk and the headphone cable comes out and goes around and weirdly loops around and gets stuck in my way all the time. It belongs on the bottom, always. So now we turn to the software. Oh, where do I start? I could start with the notifications, or the lack thereof. All of my apps are getting killed the moment I leave them. Oh, that's fine, I'll just turn off the automatic battery saver for the app. But then you get this confusing pop-up. You see, when you turn off the battery management for an app, it kills every setting, and you have to turn these 3 toggles on. If you're like me and have a tendency to skip through without reading, you have an app that is killed every moment you turn the display off. Yes, it's my fault for not reading it properly, but ultimately it's a pretty poor UI when you turn off the automatic setting and it shuts everything off, and I'm sure I'm not the only person that's ever done that. That isn't all for the notifications either. You know how on Android you can reply to notifications from your lock screen with ease? Well, EMUI, Magic UI, removes this ability. You first have to expand the notification, and then you can reply to it from the notification pane, which is a real pain. Are you someone who enjoys a smaller DPI than Android offers and go into the developer settings and just the smallest width to exactly what you want? Well, Honor knows this, and they don't care. Magic UI, at least the system UI portion of it, cannot be adjusted by the smallest width setting. No matter what you choose, your notifications and your quick setting pull down will still be comically huge. And because it's the system UI, that also means any system-generated pop-ups, like the share sheet, are similarly absurd in size. But don't worry, Honor and Huawei are hoping you give up changing your smallest width because it changes with every single reboot back to its default setting. Every single reboot. Do you like navigation gestures? Well, get ready to hate them. Honor implements it into the system without having to rely on third-party applications, which is great. But like so many other software features in EMUI or Magic UI, it breaks other things that are kind of important. Do you like using your own launcher like Nova because the stock one is kind of crappy? Well, you better get used to seeing this. My best guess is that this is the reason why they blocked changing your launcher for a while there. Not to walk you into using their crap, but to hide this embarrassing bug. But that's fine. Because the moment you realize you can't use side drawers in your applications while using stock navigation gestures, you're just going to install something better. Which is pretty much what you're going to want to do with the entire operating system. Once you get to really using it and on the daily basis, those little nitpicks start to drill into you. Like the shrapnel closing in on Tony Stark's heart, which I never quite understood, but not to be distracted. On most phones, you don't have to live with these issues because you can just install your favorite third-party experiences like Pixel Experience, Lineage OS, Remix Revolution, or the many others available. Except you can't here, and this is our top grievance of all. There was a time when Honor was quite developer-focused, or at least they were strongly indicating they wanted to be. But something changed, and you, the loyal and long-term XDA readers and viewers, never let us forget that. Huawei devices, third-party paid services notwithstanding, cannot be unlocked, cannot be modified, and all indications point to this not changing. But Daniel, what about Samsung and Sony and LG and Xiaomi? Their devices are locked down as well. Well, those devices allow some or all of their devices to be unlocked in some capacity. With LG and Samsung, you can purchase specific variants like the Chinese Snapdragon or the Exynos S9 and S10. With LG, you can just avoid carrier models and most of them can be unlocked. With Xiaomi, they have the much beloved, that's a joke by the way, bootloader unlock policy, and even though that kind of sucks, it still allows you, the user, to do what you want with your device, even if you have to wait a few days or weeks. Huawei and Honor offer none of this for their consumers, and in recent years they've even turned almost anti-consumer, giving people and developers a giant middle finger to those who are sick of EMUI, want something better, or want to support their devices for a longer period of time. It sucks. This policy sucks, and Honor and Huawei, you have the power to fix this. So that wraps up my everything wrong with the Honor View 20. And while it's called everything, I hardly got to everything that make this phone sit on a shelf much of the time. But when I do grab it, I grab it for one specific purpose: the camera. I really love the camera on this phone, and the more time I've spent with it, the more I've fallen in love with it. If you want the absolute best camera at this price, and the software issues and hardware annoyances aren't important to you, there's really only one phone you should be buying. Oh, I almost forgot our honorable mention of the day. At MWC, Honor invited a bunch of the media to an embargoed event where the attendees didn't know what they were about to announce, and they announced their foldable phone.
Whoa, no.
Oh, that wasn't it? They didn't announce their foldable phone after the Mate X was announced, which people would have expected at an embargoed event at a hotel that nobody knew about.
Yeah, sounds about right.
What in the world did they announce then?
Software update.
Oh, a software update? Yikes. So that wraps up this edition of Everything Insert OEM Got Wrong with Insert Device. I hope you guys have really enjoyed it, and if you think I missed something that drives you crazy with a device, leave it in the comments. There was a big omission in this video, and that's the Huawei scandal with the US government. I intentionally avoided this because ultimately it boils down to politics, and it's still embroiled in speculation and rumors, and I wanted to avoid that altogether. If you've enjoyed this video, and this video was meant to be enjoyed, not super serious, and I probably embellished a lot of things, and you're not yet subscribed, be sure to do so. We are approaching 700,000 subscribers, which is a huge milestone, so help us hit that. And if you want notifications of every video we put out, click the bell, and be sure to leave this video a like. It really does help us. Until next time, I'm Daniel Marchena for XDA TV.